Hi again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Around the Town with Chuck. My name is Chuck Guglielmo, a weekly interview show where we talk with interesting people in the community. And today we're taping the show on Monday, August the 28th. And with me is the Superintendent of Conneaut Area City Schools, Lori Riley. Lori, thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having me again.
We usually have you at the beginning of the year, then we
Yes.
kind of get a mid-year review in January, and then we close it out in May. So, you're going to get ready to start your second year.
My sophomore year. Yep, I'm
Your
ready.
first year, you had plenty of challenges.
Yes.
And I want to talk about some of those challenges before we come to this year. But before we do, the Welcome Back to School celebration that's held at the complex. How was that? How was the turnout for that? And how advantageous is that for not only the parents, but for the students and teachers as well?
It was very well attended. What we did this year was combine back to school night with meet the team night. So it gave an opportunity really for parents of kids from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade to have a reason to come. We have the transportation routes are available, school supply list, teacher list. So that's interesting to the younger families, but meeting the teams kind of brought out our older students as well. It just gives an opportunity for families to have information at their fingertips prior to the first day of school. And every year we debrief right after the event is over. And so we have some ways that we want to enhance it for next year as well. Possibly having the forms that you have to fill out available. So you get those forms the first night of school, and if you have multiple children, you're filling out forms multiple times. But if we could get them in the hands of the parents ahead of time, they could be ready for the first day. That's something that we talked about. So we like that it's a couple weeks ahead of time to give families that time to plan for the year.
And like you said, it was well attended. And that's held at the
Spark.
At the Spark complex.
The unfortunate thing was the band was on band camp. So the band was not able to be there because usually the band plays. But we wanted it 2 weeks ahead of school. So we're trying to see what we can do with band camp next year so the band is available.
Well, when you went into last year, some of your challenges was you walked into a new school year, your first year in Conneaut, where every building either had a new or a different principal. How did that work for you last year and coming into this year?
Well, we said on our opening day with staff, last year was a year of change, this year is a year of consistency. So it was new to everybody, new superintendent, new treasurer, every principal was in a new building, new athletic league. So certainly everybody in the district had challenges because everything was so new. What's nice for us this year is everything is consistent. But for me, coming in, it was helpful to have staff that had been here before, but they weren't necessarily in those buildings that they were at before. So we were all learning together. We were all navigating together. Very rarely did I hear, we've always done it this way, because everybody was doing it for the first time in their new buildings, new assignments. So it really gave us an opportunity to just kind of create from the start where we want to take this district forward.
Another new challenge you had going into last year, all of us did. It was the first time that Conneaut was, you mentioned, an athletic conference, that we were able to get into a conference since 2009. How would you say that fared?
I think we did fairly well. Our football was District 10 champs. Our softball was District 10 co-champs for the region. So we put 2 winning teams on the fields. But not only that, it gave our kids, again, an opportunity of consistency, an opportunity to have a set schedule. They're starting to become more familiar with the PA teams that they're playing, and then we can still build local teams to add that local flavor. So we play Edgewood for quite a few sports. We play St. John's, Jefferson. I just went through this afternoon and put all the sporting events on my calendar because I try to hit as many as I can at home. And so there's a nice mix of PA teams but local teams as well. But it gives our kids that chance to be part of a league and not play completely independent.
And feel like they're playing for something.
For something, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, that is a good thing there. Unfortunately, you had to make cuts to staff last year. I think I read recently where we ended up with 3 less teachers.
We have 3 teachers still on the reduction list, and actually we have a 4th teacher that we were able to bring back through the county ESC in an hourly position. So she has not retained her full position, but she's back working with us full time. So right now, of the original 6, we have 3 that are still on the layoff piece of it.
One of the things you also had to do was put a tax levy up.
Yes, and thank you to the voters of Conneaut
Yes.
City Schools.
Yes.
First levy that we had passed in 17 years. We are very, very grateful to what the community did for us.
And the campaign for that committee, I thought Chris Spreck also did a great job
Yes.
on
Yes.
communicating that to the people out
Yes.
there. The report card, of course, is still the issue. What do you see to try to increase that coming
Well,
this year?
And I prepared this year for you because I brought some things with me. And that's one of the things, as a county, we didn't do well on the report card. We have not had final numbers yet, but at a superintendent's meeting, we all talked about not meeting those indicators because the state continues to raise the bar while you're trying to reach the bar. We did have some areas of growth. Fourth grade math grew 23%, fourth grade reading grew 18%. We had some areas of decline. So we're making progress. We're taking 2 steps forward and a step back. It's not an excuse, but when for example, the prior year math, we were at 46.5%. Last year, we were at 70%. So we made a huge growth in math, but we didn't hit the 80% that the state wants to make that indicator. So we feel very much that we're making progress. We have worked all last year. Our district leadership team put a plan together that's focusing on academics, leadership, and school culture and climate. So academics very much stays at the forefront of what we're here to do and what we need to do to improve. And with the levy behind us, with the financial situation behind us, that's the charge this year is bringing those scores up and doing what's best for kids. And we have a lot of professional development going on for a multitude of staff. The 4 building principals are going through a leadership academy. We received a grant from the Ohio Department of Education, so we have our 4 building principals working on leadership and the instructional process. We have Ashland University coming in to do a curriculum audit to see where our holes in our curriculum are. They're going to be working with staff, and we have professional development coming up September 1st. And we were looking at how do we reach not only our students who need the bar raised, but students who are already at the bar. What can we do to enhance their learning? So we're starting to work with a gifted coordinator and to build some higher level skills in for our classes for next year. So we have all kinds of stuff going on.
The requirements that we have for our district, is it likewise for the other county schools? Are they all the same?
It's the state. It's 80% across the state. But it's where you've started. That's why I said we were at 42% in 4th grade reading. We grew up to 61%, so that's an 18% gain, but we didn't hit that 80%. So they don't look at the improvements you're making, they just look at whether or not you've made a mark. And unfortunately, only did we meet the mark currently in 3rd grade math. That was the only one where we met the indicator for that. As of now, we just had some other scores brought back, so sometime in September they should release the final results.
Well, that's it. Got to be encouraging.
It is, and it's encouraging, and we know where we need to make the bigger gains. But we're very pleased with some of the gains that we did make. So it's just again looking at that consistency across the district.
One of your goals, I know, coming in, it's a goal probably every year, is the curriculum and instruction for students. The advantage we have here is Chris Mucci. She's an outstanding curriculum director.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about Chris Mucci and your thoughts on her.
Well, it's crucial to have somebody, as a superintendent, to have somebody that's going to support the work of the instructional practice. It all falls on me as the instructional leader, but there's other pieces to the job. And so Chrissy really works hand in hand with me, preparing staff professional development, looking at the curriculum of the kids. We had 2 days in Geneva. We were at a retreat. That's where we made the connection with Ashland. That's where we made the connection with the gifted coordinator. So this year, with everything else behind us, I'm looking forward to working with her because she has some great ideas. She provides professional development to all our staff. So we're working on schedules for her, and then through the state support team, they're coming up. We're going to be doing a lot of professional development with the high school staff. It's invaluable to have somebody that can help you support the work of the curriculum, because then what she does is, and then help supports the building principals too. So she's kind of the intermediator between myself and the building principals, and helping to get the message of excellence out to all of the buildings.
A girl full of energy, and
Yes.
she'll get it done.
Yes, yes.
How can the public be involved in the Conneaut School District?
Well, I think that's one of the things that impresses me about Conneaut is the community that backs the schools. We actually are doing a partnership with the Conneaut Library. We're trying to enhance our library at the high school. A lot of the materials at the high school are very old and outdated.
So you're having a shared service?
Kind of a shared service, yes. They're coming in and helping us look at the materials that we have. They're working with our librarians on how to get materials from Cleveland, with the CleveNet system that the library has here. We want to modernize our space just like the library did here. So we're very excited for that partnership. Certainly what the Rotary provides and the businesses that are in the chamber and the support that they provide for our districts is invaluable. But, really families reading with your children, working with your children, coming to events that we have at school. We have reading and math nights at the elementary schools. We want to start some nights at the high school and middle school, just being involved.
Is that new, Lori, the reading and math night?
They had a few last year. We'd like to have a couple of events at every building this year to bring families in. And as a working parent, I know it's very difficult to get to some nighttime activities because of my schedule. So we understand that, but we encourage at least somebody to come with their children. We have nights here. I know the library opened up and worked with Gateway last year on a few things. So we really spending time and just working with your children, especially the reading piece, is so important.
Mm-hmm. Lori Riley, Superintendent of Conneaut Area City Schools, is my guest on Around the Town with Chuck. Lori, recently the state supplied, I don't know how recent, but supplied the district with some suggestions or guidelines where you could trim up to about $148,000. I'd like to go over some of those with you, and maybe you can comment on them.
Sure.
One of them was improving financial information with the public.
That had to do with our 5-year forecast and other information that the Treasurer's Office has. We're in the process of revamping our website, and there is a financial tab on the website where all of the Treasurer's information is. So it's being more transparent with the public. We provide a 5-year forecast, and you could go onto the Ohio Department of Education and dig it up. But what they like is for your local people to go onto your own information and get your own, rather than have to navigate through the state system. So the financial information is now on the website for the public to view.
Of course,
And we'll be doing another one in October.
These are just guidelines.
Right.
I mean, the school board doesn't have to do that, right?
Right. But it's just transparency, and because we have a very supportive public, there's nothing to hide. This it's the forecast is what it is, and we put it out there for everybody.
Another one was to eliminate one staff member hired through the Ashtabula County Educational Services Center, about a $49,000 savings.
So what we did, we have staff through the ESC, and Sarah Baumgardner was our full-time special ed supervisor. She was working 5 days a week. We're doing a shared service with the ESC. So Sarah's actually working only 4 days for us now and 1 day for the ESC. So we were able to reduce somewhat of her salary. The ESC is picking up 20% of her salary, but we still need the services in Conneaut 4 days a week. So a guideline, but we finessed that a little bit to still make sure that we were getting what our students need. And then she does work for the ESCs on Fridays, doing special ed for them for other districts.
Very good. This one, renegotiate contracts.
Well, that's a given. When I came in, that was one of the things I had asked at my initial interview was the union contracts. And Conneaut had just negotiated a 2-year contract with both of the unions. So last year was year 1, this year is year 2. So we'll be going back to the unions negotiating contracts for both of them next in January, February, March of
Two different
2018.
unions?
Two different unions. Our teachers are in what's the certified union, and our non-teaching employees are in a classified union. So I had an extensive background of negotiations in Ashtabula. I had negotiated contracts with them every year since 2003. So I do bring a background in negotiations, but I also believe that you can work a lot together to get where we all need to be. So we'll be looking at the union contracts. Some of the things may be doable, some of the things may not be doable based on what the audit said. But again, these are people that live and work here, and we want to do what's right for them and still do what's right for kids and keep our financial picture solid now that we're on kind of an even keel.
Decrease the district's cost of health insurance, about $99,000 here.
Right, and that's another negotiated agreement. The certified and classified both pay parts of their premiums for their health insurance. So, you know, it's just something that's negotiated, and can't really comment till we go back to the table and see where we're at with that.
Improved transportation reports.
There's two pieces to the transportation. One was the transportation rerouting, and we were able to take 3 buses off. The other are the reports that's submitted from Conneaut area city schools to the Ohio Department of Education, and it's based on funding. So that was something that this year, being Jackie and I, our first year having to do the T1 reports, that's what they're called, T1 and T2. We worked with Kelly, our transportation supervisor, together, the 3 of us, to make sure that we felt what we were submitting to ODE was as accurate as possible to bring the funding that we deserve back from ODE. So we fill out reports, send them to Ohio Department of Education, and they send us a reimbursement for transportation. So the 3 of us worked together on that to make sure they were right where we needed to be.
The school buses that were running for the D-Day event, that's paid by the D-Day people?
They give a donation back to the district. And this was my first year working that event. What a phenomenal day it was. I was just in shock. I worked the parking out of our high school. We were there before 7:30 and started loading people on the bus, and then we had to start giving wristbands out. And by 10 o'clock, we were already over 500 people had gone through our lot just in those 2 hours.
Wow.
And
they were parked on the field
they
and everywhere.
were everywhere. But, you know, it's just, that shows something about this area. You know, we had so many of our staff volunteering, people from all over the county or the community volunteering. And most of the people coming through weren't Conneaut people. You know, I didn't even get to get down there because I was working the lot and had not made it down to see the event. So it just goes to show what we might be small, but we definitely are mighty when it comes to something like that. It's just, I was just in awe of how everyone just comes together. Lots of compliments for our drivers, extremely professional, helpful. They really sell Conneaut, you know, driving that day. I think our drivers said on each bus they had about 700 people go through just Saturday. You know, Lake Shore is used for parking of the reenactors. Some of our bus drivers drive reenactors around on Thursday evening. Of course, you know, some of the shuttles that we run on Friday. So I don't mind holding back the start of school for something like this because it's just really something to showcase the entire community. People that were coming through didn't believe I was the superintendent. I'm like, yes, this
you're all over the place.
Well, I kind of am, but I like that though. I can't sit still.
Rockwell allowed you to park those cars on the football practice field?
Well, you know what happened
it.
was I was concerned because it had rained very heavily on Thursday. So we want to maintain the field first. So if the field was not able to, we weren't going to put cars on there. Matt Kitchen was at the lot too to make sure, you know, takes pride and joy in our fields. He was not going to let cars go on that field if we couldn't. But the kids did come. The football kids came for films. They didn't run practices there, but they were coming in as well. So they were utilizing the parking spaces, and then we were able to, you know, fill some extra spots after they left. But I know, well, really, it's Matt Kitchen is the one. He let me park cars.
All right, we'll blame that. A couple more suggestions here was to develop a bus replacement program.
So we have an older fleet of buses. I have a few that we want to start looking at getting rid of now. We joined, Conneaut had not been part of the Ohio Schools Council, and that's a consortium of school districts which gives you buying power in numbers. So in the spring, we're going to be looking at 1 or 2 buses, but we'll get a better price because we're part of this council. So we'll start a kind of a system of how often do we replace, what do we need to get rid of, taking a look at our fleet, because you don't want to have to buy, you can only do the consortium twice a year. So you don't want to buy outside the consortium because then you're the only one looking for a bus and you're paying top dollar. So I believe in a lot of good strategic planning when it comes to spending money and partnerships, just like we did. We were able to do paving going with the city out for bid because we were able to get a better price based on what the entire project was, better than if we were just going out for our one building. So the more we can do some cooperative agreements, the better, because it saves us money in the long run.
Seems like the schools and the city have a pretty good relationship.
Phenomenal. I just can't get over what we're able to do together. We have joint city council school district meetings. We have another one coming up September 6th. Where we talk about these things.
Is that open?
It is. It's an open meeting. Usually Mark and Martha are there from the Gazette and from the Star Beacon. I called Jim the other day about who do they use for trash, for waste pickup. So I have something to compare it to. You look at the number of people the school employ. The operations that we have to do, the city is fairly similar. So it's nice to have somebody local to bounce ideas off of, because a superintendent in South County, it might be a completely different situation because they're rural, they're smaller, but to have a similar operation where we can bounce ideas off of each other is nice. And Jim and I work very well together, so I'm happy that he's here.
One other suggestion they had here was decrease its food service expenditures or increase revenue.
Mm-hmm. So we want to do both. The food service actually runs on their own source of funding. So ideally, if your food service is operating, you want them to operate in the black. You don't want to be in the red. And that's what Jackie and I have been working with Pam from our food service, Pam Anderson. And you want to make sure that you have lunches that kids want to buy, because if you have items there that's not going to sell, then you're not going to make any money that way. But also staffing, so that you have enough staff to feed the kids in a timely manner, but not an abundance of staff where we're paying more than we need to. So actually we're meeting tomorrow to again take a look at where we are for the start of the year. I don't want to do anything drastic until I know it's going to work. So we left the food service as is. I debriefed with the principals and the supervisors on Friday. I always say the opening of school is like preseason football. Everything looks great on paper, and you put the players on the field and you have to make some adjustments. And that's how a school district operates. We have all kind of schedules and charts and graphs, and we think it looks good. And you put people in place and you put kids in buildings, and you have to make minor tweaks. So we were open for 4 days, and I met at noon last Friday with the principals and the supervisors. How is it going with transportation? How's it going with food service? How is it going with custodial staff? And then we'll make some tweaks from there. So we will be changing some of the cafeterias up, but not drastically.
Where's the main, and when I went to school, it was over at the middle school, but where is the main kitchen?
It is at the middle school.
It still is.
When they built, that was kind of built as the main kitchen, because when the high school was built, it was not rebuilt, so the high school kitchen still is not modernized. So most of the cooking is done at the middle school right now, and then sent to the other buildings.
Okay. A couple other things, Lori. I saw where the student enrollment this year was 1,700. That's kind of sad.
It fluctuates, and every day it's different. So I think the first day it was 1711. On Tuesday, on Thursday it was 1745. So it's we may have students enrolled that have moved, and we have to get them off our books. We may have students that have moved in that have to be entered. So, but it's going to hover around 1,700, which is just about what it was last year. And I don't know if I brought that, but We're holding about 1,700, but that's something that we learned with the levy. In the last 10 years, we dropped from about 2,400 down to
I thought
1,700.
it was at 2,400, yeah.
So it's been about a 10-year decline though.
And
And
you
it's
say
been holding steadily about
And
1,700.
you say a lot of that is from open enrollment?
We have some students coming in. We are fortunate or here because we don't lose students to the north because of the lake, and we don't lose students to the east because of Pennsylvania. So if we lose students to open enrollment, we only lose 2 sides, not 4. But we do have a very steady open enrollment. So if we take in 50 kids, we lose about 50 kids. So we pretty much break even financially when it comes to open enrollment, because every child that leaves to go to another district takes the state funding with them. So we lose, but we gain, and we are just about break even, give or take 3 students in open enrollment. But it's just people moving in or out that haven't been off our books yet, or they might start and end up going someplace else. But we're holding around 1,700.
Do you have a building breakdown as to how much you're in a
You know what,
each building?
I thought I had brought that with me, and I don't know that I did. Our graduating class is usually about 125, but that's, it's pretty much almost evenly divided. There's about 100 to 120 students per class is basically kind of the breakdown of each class. We had a higher enrollment in the 2nd grade, which is why we brought a teacher back. We were able to bring a teacher back off the RIF list because the enrollment had gone up a little bit from when we originally cut. But you're looking at between 1 and 125 per class. Pretty steady.
One other thing I have for you, Lori, and it concerns you again. You have taken this job now, the Buildings and Grounds Department,
Yes.
in charge of the maintenance staff assignment.
Yes.
Good for you. Why did you do that?
Well, unfortunately, when we were committed, the board was committed to make reductions. We were going to make reductions across the board. So it wasn't going to be just on the backs of the certified staff, not just on the classified staff, but including administration as well. So we cut an administrator from each of the 2 classifications. We cut a middle school assistant principal from the certified staff, and we cut the maintenance and building and grounds off of the classified staff. So somebody has to be in charge, and that's me. And it's, I'm looking at the paving project was part of that, heating and cooling. We have systems, so I'm learning a lot. But it was just a savings that we had to realize, and we are very fortunate to have the maintenance and custodial staff that we do. And I met with them on opening day, my expectations. Of course, they'll report to their building principals, but that it was just something we had to make a reduction, and so I was willing to step up and take that on as well.
How did everything go on opening night at the stadium? Outside of the game result.
Yes.
How did everything go?
I think it went very well. It was a very long day, a very busy day. We had the whiteout tailgate, but I think, when you play a team like LeBray that comes from away,
They were in the playoffs,
they
too.
were in the playoffs, but we did better this year than we did last year with them, so that was very promising. But it
Attendance
brings
was good.
Yes, because we had the whiteout, I think, and it brings people there. Really no hiccups. We had a couple hiccups the first volleyball night. The air wasn't working. We were having some problems with the sound system. But we play Edgewood tonight, and the air is working, and the mic should be working, so we should be ready to go.
The only hiccup I saw at the stadium last Friday night, the band. What happened? I mean, we got penalized because they were out there too late.
Yeah, I heard, of course, communication from you guys up in the booth down to the band. I don't know, but we had a golf outing on Saturday morning. So I was back Saturday morning for that, and we were talking about the game Friday night and the penalty. Unless you tell the referees you think you're going to be late, if we don't start on time, then we're penalized. So for example, on September 8th, we have our first responders game. We're asking everyone to wear red, white, and blue to that game. But we'll present the flags. We have a little pregame event that's going to happen, so we'll let the refs know. And if you're within a couple minutes, normally you don't get penalized. But there was no fanfare at the beginning of the game other than the band, and they just went a little long, and we got a 5-yard penalty. But we still put up 14 unanswered points at the beginning.
Yes, real early. It was looking really good.
That might have fired Rocco up, maybe. I don't know.
Well, Lori, thank you very much for
Thank
joining
you.
us, and have a successful second year here in
Thanks.
Conneaut. You do a
Second
great
of
job.
hopefully many.
You do a great job.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Lori Riley, Superintendent of the Conneaut Area City Schools, my guest today on Around the Town with Chuck.